This is a story from a book I wrote called Fatdaddy's Watermelon and Other Tales from the Holla. I wrote it about 20 years ago, and it's about memories from my childhood of time spent with my grandparents, Bubba and Fatdaddy, down on their little dairy farm in rural Mississippi. As a matter of fact, I'm living on that property now and have been for the past 20 years. It's called Cutting Off Corn. I think you might like it. The sun was still sleeping when Bubba arose. The smell of hot biscuits awakened my nose. This sultry June morning would open her arms to neighbors and kinfolk on Fatdaddy's farm. I rose from my slumber and headed outdoors as Bubba completed her last morning chores. The ground was a blanket of fresh fallen dew, and the sky in the hollow was waking up blue. The old rooster crowed his third morning alarm, and Bubba sang gospel as she marched from the barn. I ran out to meet her in calloused bare feet, and the bees danced on blossoms. The air smelled so sweet. We both rushed inside to collect some dishpans, then out to the smokehouse with 4 loaded hands. Her knives and buckets and lawn chairs were ready. Now we would wait for the corn and Fatdaddy. A few moments passed, and we heard the putt-putt of my dear old Fatdaddy's red pickup truck. The ears had been pulled, and the burlap was filled with bushels of corn from a neighbor's cornfield. Fatdaddy's old Chevy was leading a band of neighbors and kin who were lending a hand. When that procession of pickups came to a halt, my uncles unloaded the corn they had brought. They all carried dishpans and knives and lawn chairs, and Bubba's best buddy, Miss Larvale, was there. Some aunts and some cousins spilled out of those trucks, and I was so tickled that Ricky showed up. Everyone was wearing a big country smile, and their greetings and chatter were heard for a mile. They were eager to start that beautiful morn, a-shucking and silking and cutting off corn. Hundreds of fresh ears were poured out of those sacks, and the fragrance was sweet as we peeled the shucks back. And my cousin and I were often surprised by a chubby green creature found feasting inside. Shucking was fun, and the silking was steady. A good wash of those ears, and then they were ready. A small circle was formed by some ladies with pans, and each one had a knife and an ear in her hands. Then Ricky Glenn and I sat down on the ground and played with the corn shucks and the creatures we'd found, and the ladies were set on completing the job of cutting those kernels right off of the cob. We lingered close by and listened to chatter and giggles and babble and what was the matter. They talked about days from before I was born, while shucking and silking and cutting off corn. I remember my aunt recalled that she played with dolls made of corn shucks back in the old days. She said that the silks made excellent tresses, and the corn shucks, of course, served as the dresses. They shared the latest as the cutting sustained, and right in amongst them, me and Ricky remained. As they cut off the kernels into the pans, white liquid would splash on their faces and hands. It didn't take long for the flies to descend on speckles and splatters on family and friends. Though flies were a nuisance and the task a mess, this day on the farm was one I liked best. Surrounded by children and chickens and flies, they gossiped and laughed under blue country skies. A wonderful memory I hold of that morn, a-shucking and silking and cutting off corn. Now share that with somebody that you happen to know likes Southern nostalgia.